and Charlie's with all the conversations we've had, a lot of the things that we talked about. But I think you've been interviewed probably hundreds of times, I imagine, and it's probably a lot of the stuff is already down, but I wonder if they've covered some of the things that I think the banjo people would like to know about. Like, I bet they'd like to know, you started at a very early age, and when you started, what happened? I mean, what kind of instrument did you have, and how did you get going on the thing?
Well, the first instrument I had, I made myself. I think I covered pretty much the story of it
in your book,
in the songbook,
right? Well, what was it like when you say you made it? Was it fretless?
Yeah, fretless, very crude. It would play, and that was about it, you know.
And how old were you then?
I was about 7, I guess, when we made that banjo. I started playing when I was 5. My brother had a band, and these boys would come up to his house, playing when they'd take time off to eat.
So you heard banjo even at that age around you?
Oh, yeah.
That's what got you interested in it.
Right. A guy by the name of Leonard Snyder, who played banjo with him, and with 2 fingers, you know. Classified as a good banjo player. He played like Wade Manning. I guess Wade must have influenced him, you know. Young boy, about 19, 20 years old.
That's kind of a style that no one really seems to be doing at all now. I mean, outside of the old-timers that are still playing, but the interest in the young people is either in 3-finger style or in the clawhammer.
Yeah, clawhammer.
But the 2-finger is really not fish nor fowl. It's entirely different from both.
It hit a stage, and well, it lived a very short period of time, actually, I'd say. Probably from about probably 1930 until about 36, 37, actually, got knocked out. There's a lot of people still played with 2 fingers after that for a while, but they found that it either went to 3 fingers or the frail lick.
Right. Yeah, I remember meeting an older fella down at Galat's who played with a thumb pick in what you would kind of call a bluegrass band. The band was oriented toward bluegrass type of music, and yet he played in a 2-finger style. And it was kind of a roll, although it had a choppiness to it.
Some of them could, well, Jack Phelps, for instance, can take 2 fingers and get a 3-finger roll with it somehow or another, you know.
Well, did you yourself start with 2 fingers when you started playing?
Yeah, started with 2.
And how long did you stay with that before you got the other one in action?
Let's see. About 5 or 6, 7 years.
Do you think that's the reason that your 3-finger style is so unique, that you had those years of playing with 2 fingers, where there are times today that you'll still be playing, not in a 2-finger style, but you'll be using the alternating thumb and index?
I would alternate between guitar and banjo during that period, and I more or less catered to a guitar more than I did banjo. You know, I like the guitar better because use a flat pick, you know, and picking out lead stuff on guitar. I started that at a very early age, and then when I did hear Snuffy Jenkins with a 3-finger roll, you know, I said, well, this is really something. And he showed me how to start with the 3 fingers, you know, put a pick on the 3rd.
Ideal.
And keep rolling it if it hurts you, if it kills, you know. So about 3 weeks, I'd say.
It took you to get it smooth.
Then after I worked on that, I just moved it straightened out. Anyway, I found there was places in trying to play certain breakdowns that you couldn't hardly roll it, keep your roll going and the tune going. So like you could a guitar, with a flat pick, you could pick note to note just like a fiddle. So that's where I started doing.
Plus the fact that the guitar has more sustain and you can fill in some of those holes too.
That's when I started with the split second time with the thumb and finger on one string, pick, just like you're using a flat pick.
Like you're using a flat pick.
Like some guy down at Rouse Stanley's Festival, I had to take him on the bus and show him that I didn't use a flat pick. He said, after I told him, I said, no, I don't use a flat pick. He said, well, would you just show me that you don't? I said, yeah, I'll be great.
Prove it. Well, there's no time in your style that you're actually taking the thumb and bringing the thumb pick back like you would.
No.
Because I know there are times people have said that they thought you were doing that at times.
That would be a catastrophe.
I would think you'd get snagged.
You'd get hung up every which way.
Well, in an interview I did with Fairchild on trying to figure out what he does on blues stuff, I asked him that, and he said that he uses, at times, just the thumb pick, or just his thumb.
I do too. Yeah.
But it's all going to be in a downward
stroke. I never pull a thumb pick backwards. It's always that thumb finger comes back. You're down with your thumb and up with the finger, and it's so quick it sounds like
you're going
one note has been struck with a pick.
Someone sent me, Don, a thumb pick, basically like a dobro clear plastic thumb pick that they had cut the working part off it and then epoxied to it a flat pick. And this fellow said that he, by having that thing on his thumb like this, he played guitar and banjo. And when he's playing three-finger style, he had it as a thumb pick. But he said there were times when he would take his finger and then activate it as a thumb pick for cross-picking.
Well, you could do that. That'd be an awful lot of trouble, I'm saying.
I don't think it's necessary. You develop the other finger to come in there.
Maybe on a guitar, it could be, because you need more power on a guitar than you would a banjo,
on those heavy strings, too.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of music did you hear when you were a young boy like that? I mean, what kind of songs? Because your repertoire today is so much different from the average bluegrass band or the bluegrass banjo player.
Well, all kinds of music. I more or less was interested in all phases of it more than I was, it's like going to the Smithsonian Institution. Instead of looking at just one item, you want to see how many it is, different things. And I liked Western swing, where it's come out, or the old pop tunes. I don't know, somehow they caught my ear back when I was
even then.
Yeah. The Glenn Miller sound, I thought was out of this world, and stuff like that.
So a good melody was fair game for you.
Yeah, it didn't
matter
make
where it came strictly from country or from
I wasn't
tradition.
Dyed in the wool one way. About listening. I'd listen to something and then adapt it to my.
I think that's a marvelous way to look at it. I get a little tired of the people who only will play music that is within a certain field. They limit themselves.
Because you can take any type of music up and
just
convert it back to what you want to play it.
We used to play in kind of like musical parties up on Martha's Vineyard. Now, my theory on this is that these guys must have listened a lot to those Clear Channel radio stations that came out of Del Rio, Texas, even up into New England, because the songs that are part of their square dance repertoire, well, they'll be old fiddle tunes, but they'll also play Red Sails in the Sunset. And
Red River Valley,
and a lot of those Bob Wills tunes.
They'll cut back the Maple on the Hill on you. You'll even get requests for that up in the New England states now. Or some of the songs that was popular down south, what you call Southern Hillbilly stuff, they heard it somehow.
They heard it somehow, right.
So it must have been Del Rio, Texas. Maybe they heard it on Wheeling.
Yes.
They picked it up.
And I think it's fun if you're playing an evening for people to dance and you're breaking the selections up that way.
Yeah.
That's right. And up there, the tenor banjo was still is still very popular, at least on the island.
Yeah.
In fact, I know a guy who bought a Monkey Ward.
Yeah.
Because everyone else had banjos, and when it came in, it was a Gibson. It wasn't a quality Gibson, but it was made by Gibson in the 30s, and it had a 5th string peg on it. He said, "What the heck is that?" He took it off because he plays with a flat peg.
It was evidently the $45 Gibson they made back in the 30s.
Not a bad banjo.
You know, they made a Kalamazoo, which was Depression years to keep from selling Gibson. Just like RCA Victor made Bluebird Records, you know, to sell cheap, and keep them putting their quality merchandise out, just like LaSalle made a Cadillac made a LaSalle, sell cheap in Cadillac.
Just a different name.
And the Kalamazoo and the cheap grade Gibson they made was identical. The only difference was it had Kalamazoo on the peg head instead of Gibson.
Well, how long did you stay with the homemade thing then? What'd you move up to after that? When did you get it?
I stayed with it about 6 months or a year, I guess. And then my brother gave me some kind of a banjo. Didn't even have a name on it. I think it had been a tenor banjo, and somebody had put a 5th string on it.
The short neck was like a tenor neck with a short peg.
Yeah. And it was a pretty big. It didn't have no red neck. And somebody had drawn flags of the United States all over the head of it, you know. But it was so far ahead of the other one, you know. And I thought I really had something. They gave me this one. And I traded that banjo in on a Gretsch. Enca, North Carolina, right out of Canton. Gretsch sold for $32.50. And it had all this pearl on it, you know, or out looked like a pearl. You know. Beautiful instrument. It wasn't too swift to sound. I kept it then till I traded it on the cheap model Gibson, you know, $45 job.
Which was a lot of money then.
Oh, yeah.
$45 then is...
Thank you. Probably allowed me $12 for the $32.50. Alexander's Music Store in Spartanburg. I paid $2 a week on it. Then Snappy Jenkins sold me the old Mastertone Gibson. 1941, I guess it was, for $50. It was actually the high price gift. It was the gold-plated job, you know, curly made. It's the one I traded to Scrub.
That's the famous one that you swapped on. How did that come about? Is that?
Well, Earl kept wanting this banjo, you know, back. He used to come over and watch our radio show every day, him and Grady Wilkie. He used to drive a 36 Chevrolet over there about once a week. Earl had a Sears Roebuck banjo. I think it cost about $17.50 or something like that. And he was pretty good at setting one up, you know, he had it sounding good. And he wanted to trade with me. He always started off $5 to boot, you know. I told him I didn't want to trade it. And he got up to $35, you know. Every week he'd go up $5. I'll never forget the last time he tried to buy it. He said, "I'll give you $35 cash for my banjo." Now that's a lot of money. And I told him, I said, "I just don't want to sell it." But he had back of his mind, he wanted this banjo, you know. So when I come along in 1948, and he had the banjo that I got now, it was almost new. Hayes Hall in Bassett, Virginia, bought the banjo new in Danville in 1934, and hadn't played it hardly any. Earl must have fell into this banjo about 1947, I guess. It still had the same frets in it. Looked like a brand new one. My banjo, I took the Fort Riley, Kansas with me, you know, on a service. Kept it one night and had to send it home. And and they just about shot that dude, you know, throwing it around like a baseball. And when I saw this banjo Earl had, I thought, well, now he's got something
worth talking about.
So I asked him if he still wanted to trade it. He said, yeah. See, he asked me how I'd trade. He figured I wanted some boot, I reckon. I told him, I said, well, I don't want to cheat you. I'll give you my banjo and a new D28 Martin guitar. And he almost fainted when I said that. He said, yes, for goodness sake. But he didn't know how bad a shape mine was.
What you had. So he had to put some work into it.
Yeah.
You got it.
I bought a new Martin guitar in 1946, when I come out of the Army. It didn't have the tone in it that the old herringbones had or something. I don't know. It was like the first Gibson banjo they made after the war. I got one of the first 12 we made. Man, it didn't have it. I never was as sick in my life as I was. The night I pulled that thing out and marched on the stage, and I was really proud of it. Yeah. And Arthur Smith's brother asked me about the second number. We played a ballpark. Of course, when the dampers hit that head. And he asked me, he said, is your fingers broke or sore or something? I said, no, why? He said, well, I can't hear the banjo. He hadn't even paid enough attention, you know, it had been a hassle
What
with
you
the
were
show
carrying.
set up. I said, well, this was a new banjo. He said, well, where's your old one? I said, it's back there in the car. He said, well, get it.
This was still playing, you were playing with calf, or hide heads at this point.
I used KFI until, I guess, about 1959. The Rogers 3-star, they was selling for $19.50, you know, when I used it.
What do you like today? Everyone uses plastic, and I know I've written in newsletter not long ago that one of the things that I guess is kind of a theory where everyone talks about that pre-war sound, and a lot of the guys are going back to the old records when they talk about the sound. And of course, a lot of those, I'm sure, were done with hide heads. And what are your feelings? I mean, let's say if you could get a banjo today set up, or is it just so totally impractical for the kind of work that a professional has to do?
Well, actually, I don't think there's that much difference. There is a difference. If you can get the old head set up, but you had to keep tightening and tightening, so finally when you got it just about to where it was right, it didn't have much life left in it, you know.
Well, then the weather would change.
Yeah,
and
the weather
have to
would
back
change
off.
and go down a half fret, you know. You're in a show outside at night, so the plastic don't bother you.
Right. That's it. It's a totally practical thing. I wondered if there wasn't a way, like I talked to Andy Borman about this, where you could maybe treat a calf skin head with some kind of a sealer that you could keep the moisture from getting into it. And I know he's tried some different things on that.
I think the calf skin give you just a little more melatonin than plastic.
Yeah.
But about a year would shoot ahead, you know.
That's about all you could get out of it.
You know, or professional was using.
Right.
Keep
all that constant tension.
The plastic head, goodness sakes, I've had that on my banjo, on my Gibson since 1969. And it's still, I've not even tightened it or anything, you know.
So you've been playing that same one all the way through then?
Yeah.
We did talk one time about that top tension bell that you had for a while.
I tried it, let me picture of the thing. Well, I tried that thing.
Now the one I saw that you had on the record album had a different neck than that one.
Yeah. That one had a different neck in it. This was a 39. That's the old Scotty Wiseman banjo. It had squares on it, kind of
Right,
like
right.
B45 guitar.
Mm-hmm.
That was
That
what
was
was
the one
originally come out.
That's
at.
how it came, yeah.
That's when they changed, I reckon. 39 or 40. I believe it's 39, late 39. And they changed the pattern on the neck then. But the neck was wishy-washy, you know. It seemed too little and too thin. You could pull it around every which way. And Tom Morgan made this neck here. I got the first neck he ever made. And I had to have a lot of work done to it after he gave it to me. But one day the banjo would sound good, the next day it wouldn't. And I fiddled with it. We was doing an hour and a half TV show every morning then, you know. And I'd try it maybe on half the show and get disgusted with it. Get my oven out, you know.
Couldn't count on it, though.
Or if I tried it on a show or a dance somewhere, I always had my other one. I might play that one set and then put it back in the case.
Whatever happened to that one? Was that,
I sold it to somebody in Chatham, Virginia, about 1964, I think. $750.
Imagine it's got a lot more value than that now.
I had $9.50.
You had $9.50?
Yeah. Oh yeah, today that banjo. Well, the Wiseman family, you know, if they could find it located,
Right.
they'd pay all kind of money.
Get it back. Well, in the early days, because everyone knows now that when you're on stage, you're playing an open neck all the way through. Did you ever capo when you were first
No.
working jobs and so on? You always operated that way then?
I didn't even know there was a capo for a banjo. I'd seen them used on guitar until I went to work for Bill Monroe. And he asked me where my capo was at. I said, capo for a banjo? Never heard of it. He said, I said, well, do you use a capo on your mouth? No. I said, well, I never heard of a capo for a banjo. I've seen them for guitar. You know. I've used them on guitar, but never on a banjo. So he played everything in flats and sharps that night. Just to
test you?
Test me out.
Yeah.
I think we played one number, an open chord, night. While I was working with him, he did ask me if I would use a capo and some stuff, you know. Kind of humiliating in a way. So, yeah, as long as I was working for him, he was paying me whatever he wanted, I'd do, you know.
Well, let's say you get up into B flat now, and you're playing on the open neck like that. What do you do about your fifth string? How do you let's as far as advice to a person?
You can note it with your finger, you know.
You will note it when it's called for, but other times you'll avoid it then, right?
Or you go to down the neck to a higher chord, you know, and use your first, second, and third, you know, where you'll be using your thumb string.
Right.
It's more complicated unless you've done it without a capo. Capo makes it a lot easier, but now if I put a capo on now, it's been so many years since I used one, I lose position, you know.
Yeah.
I got used to my nut being up here at a certain point.
Right. You have to
gauge
mentally count. Yeah. So when you were playing on that Tree of Life, you said you're basically, what you do is read the side dots then, as far as location.
Right. Yeah. I never looked at the neck.
And a certain amount of it's got to be feel after all these years too. You build in a certain distance range.
You know, I know my neck pretty well.
Right.
Your three major positions you call, you know, G and
Well,
D.
I've thought as like putting in an article or some kind of a learning thing in tablature some month. Because I know, let's see, the other day I picked up a banjo that had a broken fifth string on it, and I was just fooling with it. And I think it would be a very good training device, an exercise for someone to fool around with a four-string banjo for a while to get neck orientation and neck knowledge, not rely on that fifth string.
I'll tell you one time that come in handy to me. You remember back when Prince Albert was CBS, I guess it was. Red Foley had the show on Saturday night, you know, sponsored by Prince Albert.
Right.
And he's not only on Opry, but he's on every station in the United States, you know. And I had a spot on that for a while, and I was playing. I think it was string 45 and broke a fifth string, and just, you know, I just went on down the neck and kept playing. Nobody knew I broke it. Till I got But if I hadn't knew what to do, I'd have had to quit, you know. And back then it was live, and
you couldn't drop out.
Or you can break a first and keep playing sometimes, you know.
Well, it certainly makes it easier. Like one night when you were ill about a month ago, I would think it'd be tough for a banjo player to come in and fill in for you, because you guys know exactly what your keys are and everything else, and there's not that much time in between the end of one and the beginning of another for the banjo player to get the clamp on and to get the fifth string tucked in.
Right.
Like Tommy Neal that night, I think something went into D real quickly. Well, he had time to get the fifth string underneath his hook up at 7, but he didn't have time to get a capo 1. Well, that's not too much of a problem, but if you're really locked into that capo use,
well, it's hard to MC a show and use a capo, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost impossible.
That's true. Well, don't you all, you haven't done that much with capo, but I know in most cases you have to retune too.
Every time I ever put one
for a while there I thought it was just me, but you really have to adjust those middle two strings just about every time.
I never seen nobody use a capo in my life didn't have to touch it up somewhere, and especially me.
That's one of the disadvantages of those Keith type tuners, because if you got those things set for the wang sound, and then you capo up too, you got to unset them all the time. So most guys will just keep them on set because they need the regular tuning devices.
And if you tune up or down using them pegs, then you got to reset them again for that.
That's right. They're a novelty, and they do have nice sound, a nice effect, but...
And they tend to, well, the old ones stuck down. I don't know, the ones on the lane didn't bother me. I didn't ever gear them up to use them. Never used them. But the old ones, you know, stuck way down.
The ones that went through the head.
Had always be getting hit on something and knock the banjo out of tune and this and that.
So really, the theory that I've heard from a lot of people about your style is that, guys always say to me, well, he must have listened to a lot of tenor banjo or a lot of plectrum people to develop that style.
Well, I listened to everything.
Yeah.
And would take off of one instrument and put it on the banjo, you know. I guess playing guitar, you know, back then, and at a very early age, I had a guitar pretty well mastered, you know. There wasn't no doubt in my mind about a guitar, you know, when I was really young. And I took care of everything off the guitar and put it on the banjo, you know, back up and all.
But one of the things that identifies the chromatic approach is that Scales are used quite a bit in chromatic style, and yet you use scales quite a bit yourself. Although you're finding your scales in most cases on fretted strings, while the chromatic picker will be usually you find them on an open and using he's playing out of a G neck and finding the open strings.
Right.
But you're working out of those positions.
I just wonder if they could play chromatic in A if it didn't have a capo.
No, that's it. They play out of a G. They know their neck cold out of G, out of a G neck, G position. But you'll do the fiddle tune Bill Cheatham, and you're playing on an open neck, but in A.
In A.
Okay. It's an entirely different ballpark.
Our drum full.
Right.
A.
Right.
And you got to hold down on that, all the way through.
That's it. It's one thing to know what you've got up there with the capo on, but when you go into Orange Blossom Special, you're playing in E and A.
Right.
It's intriguing. I bet someone could probably throw you up on stage with a 4-string plectrum neck, and you could pull it off, and if someone closed their eyes, they wouldn't know the difference. They wouldn't know the difference.
I could pull it off. I always thought Eddie Peabody was a master at his trade,
Sure was. Right. Don, I heard an album the other day that someone sent me from the Rounder people. It's open back 5-string playing, nylon strings without finger picks, called what they call the classical style. An Englishman named William Ball, and I guess it goes back to the legacy of the Fred Van Epps people and those folks. They're not playing, certainly it's not bluegrass, but what they're playing is music. Piano accompaniment and a banjo, and it is some of the nicest sounding stuff you'll ever hear.
Well, now, I'm sure you probably heard of Frank Prophet.
Yes.
He made what he called a banjar. It was a board-type back, small instrument, fretless, with a coon skin on it.
Yeah.
He willed it to Williamsburg Foundation.
Yeah.
Well, they only make film down there in the 17th century, So they had made a film called Basket Making. And they wanted this instrument played on the film with all 17th century tunes for a film track. And they tried several people in there to play this thing. It was 4-string there. And it had nylon strings. And nobody couldn't do it. And finally, Bert Rapine, he used to be the program director at Richmond, WRVA. He said if you could locate Don Reno, said I think he could do it. So they hunted around till they found me. I went down there and watched the film and done a research on the music, down all these 17th century tunes. By playing fiddle and, like I said, didn't have a thumb string on it. Turned out Blue Ribbon in New York City.
There's a picture of you with that instrument in the songbook, isn't there?
But I was afraid the instrument was going to fall apart. You'd play it slow and then you'd speed up maybe on the same tune and just keep switching tunes, all through the thing.
Just a medley. Well, you work on your own banjos, don't you? As far as the setup part of it, anyway.
Yeah.
What do you do to get the sound that you're looking for?
I usually find it in the tightening of the head and the bridge.
That's where your sound is.
Yeah. And the pitch that your tailpiece is running from. You you tinker around with one for a while and find out where your sound is best suited.
Well, you mentioned in your first book that you do some shaving of your bridges and things like that.
Do
right?
that.
The first time I saw you back when I came back this year, you were using a bone top bridge, and in fact, you had a bone top bridge and you were using a metal thumb pick.
Yeah, I used that metal thumb pick for a long time, and then I started using plastic again, and it seemed like the plastic, well, the metal one got wore down. Pretty
thin,
and I couldn't find another one that suited.
Was this an old one, or one of these ones that Dunlop is?
No.
Dunlop is making them again. And
boy made this pick for me, and it lives in Princeton, West Virginia.
Davis Kennedy?
Peterstown or something like it is. Never can remember his name. I've known him since 1950.
I know a banjo maker down in Princeton who used to be with the Gibson people. Davis Kennedy, do you know him?
No, I don't know. In fact, I got a letter from this boy not too long ago. But I've been using the same set of finger picks for about 11 years.
Guard those with your life,
yeah. They're made out of stainless steel. Never wore out. And so is the thumb pick. And it's the only metal thumb pick I ever use. It wouldn't scrape, most of them will scrape.
Yeah, they sure do. I guess if you get used to it, but I always found it was rasping on the fifth string after the note.
Yeah.
The string would vibrate back into it.
But I did a lot of recording with a metal thumb pick, and I never did hear no rasping on it.
No, it's amazing how the banjo has kind of taken off again, and it's
going back through history of a lot of the numbers that finally come south and were called major hits, or standards of the day. It started Tin Pan Alley. If there was a hit there, that vaudeville acts would take them out, out through the country. And they'd finally get south,
get down there and get heard.
And just like Down Yonder, Bill Bailey, some of the old songs like that. Yes, Sir, She's My Baby, I guess that would fall into the Charleston 80s.
Charleston, right. That's right. The ragtime things, yes.
Jazz, what you want to call it. And my inclination was back in the early part of 1950 was to try to put the banjo into another perspective from what it was, then. I knew there was a feel for it, and I'll tell you why I thought that. A lot of people will hum a tune that they've heard, and if they hear it played on a certain instrument, if they know that tune, or they'll, it causes disturbance, and they'll say, well, what's doing this? So I would say the old pop tunes of the 20s and 30s were some of the best standards we ever. I would say the old pop tunes of the 20s and 30s were some of the best standards we ever had, So I started figuring it like this: if I could get like Limehouse Blues, Yes, Sir, She's My Baby, Birthwood Blues, Under the Double Eagle, Beer Barrel Polka, and stuff like that, which nobody would play on
done before.
And people would hear the tune up north. It would start a field up there, that was really hadn't been touched.
And what's happened is these tunes have now entered the bluegrass. They've entered the literature or the repertoire of other pickers.
I was kind of walking the line, a tightrope there for a while, you know, when I first started this stuff. Every time I'd record, I'd try to add one or two of the old standard pop stuff tune, you know.
Yeah, you're always dealing with an audience that has got a certain attention span or a certain musical
like
familiarity. They want to hear something that they can identify. It's true.
Even steel guitar rag, you know, that was a well-known number. It was known to be played on a steel guitar, you know.
Why not? Why not?
I cut that, you know, on the back.
Well, that's basically what a lot of the kids are doing today with what they call the uptown sound.
Yeah.
They're going into different areas and picking up the songs.
Yeah.
It's questionable whether they're as good as what you were working from, because
they don't have the tunes as well established as I did.
That's right. They haven't been around.
That's the trouble right there. See, these tunes were established. The tune was already made. All I had to do was play it.
And they've been played for years and years by the dance bands and all.
By every type of a band.
Yeah, everybody would have that as part of it.
So everybody knew the tune.
Yeah.
Or most people, I'd say 90% of people had heard the tune. The tune rang a bell in their head. In other words, they knew they wasn't. There's a lot of people that don't know the difference between Old Joe Clark and Sally Gooden, you know. It may sound strange to you, but if you're not a musician and you've not followed it all your life, you can play the two tunes and ask somebody the difference, and they'll say, well, which one did you play first or last?
That's right.
But if you play steel guitar rag, or down young, or under the double eagle, they'll know the difference.
Well, what they're hearing, well, maybe not double eagle, but a lot of those tunes, what they'll hear is the words. They'll hear in their mind, I think, the words of the title. They may not know all the words.
Or San Antonio.
Yeah, it's a song that was sung at one time, and then it becomes an instrumental too.
Or some big band had it on network radio, or had a hit record out of it, and maybe two or three different outfits had it, had hits on it.
Well, one of the things too, I don't know if this is anything that could even be ever explained really properly, because it's a mystery to a lot of people, is the use of chords that you take any song that's got, you know, a 3-chord structure, but you're throwing in a lot of other things in there all the time. And how do you think these things out? I mean, where does this come from? What's the influence behind it? Or?
I always like to keep busy behind anything, and if there was a structure to walk from one chord to another, I always tried to find it. Instead of just holding out with the one.
Now, did this come out of a concentrated study of harmony? Did you sit down and study the theory and the harmony? Or is it just kind of something?
I did it one time, yes, and I had the feel, you know.
The feel was there too,
and I sat down and figured out chords on the banjo by knowing like what one note will harmonize with another.
Yeah,
you know.
Right. Just where your ear came in. Then.
Yeah.
So you weren't working from any book or anything at this point?
No, not necessarily. Sometimes I would sit down with a piece of paper and jot 2 notes down that went together, you know, harmonized. A D and a B harmonized, you know. A B and a G will harmonize. Or a G and a D will harmonize together. You know. And then I figured out a lot of 3-part stuff. You know. Then walking it.
Right.
Walking it from one point to another, you know. And fitting it in with whatever I was doing. That was
plus the ability to do it in any key at any given time.
Right. If you do it in one key, it's the same thing in another with different
Just
at a
start-
different position
just
on your
start.
neck. See? And I think this is probably one thing that a lot of players never really got into, and I was used to concentrate on trying to make the band sound better overall, you know, not just my banjo, but what would fit
the other
band
instruments,
and
the
make
blend.
a guy singing the first sound better, you know. Because at one period of time, a banjo did no backing at all. I mean, it was just straight picking or frailing or chords, strumming or whatever have you. I found different sevenths and walkbacks. In other words, you didn't have to sit and do the same thing all the way through a verse. You know, you could move.
And you probably approach it each time you play the song. I doubt very much if you play it the same way, identically as
No,
you did the last
I
time.
don't try to. There's a few things that I have to do about the same way because, like the kickoff, when I know you married, they'll love you still. You know, people are looking for that, or maybe talk of the town. But through the middle of the song, I'll change my variations around from time to time, according to how
To satisfy yourself.
keep it from getting boresome.
That's right. I think
Same thing. And there's no end to what can be done with a banjo. By no means ever reached its full growth yet. I mean, there's so many things that can be done with it yet.
And that's the fun part of it. 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 Piano or anything? Have you ever had access to a piano where you sit down and
I'm never enough to play one. I can sit down.
pick a melody out? And
Well, yeah.
probably wouldn't take you long.
I never did get interested in a piano.
I just think for maybe the chordal approach. You know,
I have. My mother used to have an old organ, you know, and you had the pedal. I used to sit down and figure out the harmony parts. Very good instrument for that.
That's right. Right. Yeah.
As far as you know, hitting down is always. I wanted something I could hold, you know, up.
I can't carry the piano with you.
No, I can't lift it.
Well, I don't know how to get into this aspect because I know I wanted to ask you something about the songwriting part of your musical career and kind of the. Well, is it in the realm of the danger of, let's say, someone who comes up with an original idea or a song, and how have you protected yourself over the years? Or have you lost a lot that have been written and then not been copyrighted properly or registered properly?
The only way I ever lost one was writing it and then losing a copy of it, forgetting it.
Forgetting it yourself.
Myself. And songwriting is a talent or a gift, just like playing, you know. You can't sit down and say, I'm going to write songs today, maybe in the middle of the night, songwriting. Siege will hit me and I'll have to get up, maybe write all night, and then look at what I wrote the next day and be just as flabbergasted with it as the next guy.
How do you write? Do you write with an instrument in hand, or do you sit down and put it?
No.
You write words first?
I write the words and keep the tune in my head while I'm writing. Then I'll usually get a guitar and run back over to see if I did goof up somewhere. I'm not meter it out.
So you hear the tune and the words at the same time. Title
Title of a song always usually give me an inspiration to start. And I like short titles, really, for songs. Or some saying, word that people have used, maybe I like pretty bad to use them, things like that. I started writing at a very early age, where first song I wrote, I must have been, I guess, 11 or 12 years old.
So it was there all the time. It was bound to come out.
I'd write little old, like it was hit song come out or something, and maybe you catch one verse of it or the chorus. If somebody asked me to sing it when I was a kid, I'd go along and make up a few verses while I was just singing, And
thinking one line ahead.
Didn't know whether I was right or not. I know. When I was working.
And in most cases, the people listening probably wouldn't catch it.
No, I'll tell you, the funny thing that happened when I was working with Bill Monroe, I heard, all I heard was the chorus was, When You're Lonely, and the song struck me, I liked it. So, I was singing duets with him at this time. We were in the tent show in Missouri. I said, well, let's sing When You're Lonely. Okay. We sung the thing for about 3 weeks, and I'd sing different verses every night. I couldn't remember what we doing in the chord. And it took him that long that he asked me one. He said, "You singing the same verses as that song every night?" I said, "I don't know."
You listen and tell me.
He said, "Well, I thought I heard some different verses." But he never paid no attention to it until the third
Just
week.
until the chorus came in. That's when he was listening.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably true of a lot of people in a band. That they're really not listening.
Well, that's what I used to do with Red when he was singing the version of the song. Or Bill, I'd be interested in backup.
The backup, right? Yeah. Or when someone else is taking a break, do people really hear the notes that the guy is making on the break? Because they're getting ready for whatever they're going to do next themselves. I'm just saying. I'm not saying this is true of everybody, but I think a lot of people, if they do it this way, they're suffering because that's when the band sound will deteriorate if they're not listening to each other.
Right. Yeah. I'm listening to him, but I'm not listening to the words he's saying.
Yeah.
I'm listening to the tune.
The tune and what's possible within the harmonies and so on.
Or the overall sound of the band.
Yeah. Right.
I keep the sound of the band in my head all the time, from one end of the stage to the other. And I can hear time if it varies one bit.
And isn't that tough to do on stage? If you've got a noisy place, isn't it awfully tough when you're playing a stage sort of situation to hear everybody that's on your side?
Sometimes it is, yeah. There's one thing about the band that I've got right now. I think it's got the best time in it of any band that I've ever had together. I never have no problems with the time breaking or speeding up, slowing down.
Yeah.
If somebody sets time for a song,
you finish it at the same.
Yeah. Even if you get it too fast or too slow.
You're right there. What do you have? What are your feelings on this idea of too fast? And, I know I have my feelings
I think
about.
you can ruin a song.
Certain bluegrass is played too fast.
You can ruin one by playing it too slow or too fast. I think it's
an ideal tempo for certain
ideal
songs.
tempo, really, for every song. I mean, if you really get technical about it.
Yeah. Well, what do you think happens? Let's say a record is made where that's the standard for that particular song, and kids will go out and they'll learn the song, and they'll either learn it note for note. But what seems to happen is that when they play it, or the next time around, somebody will pick it up and accelerate it, and it'll be faster than the original.
I
Is this
think,
to show off that they can do it faster?
No, I don't really think that's. I think maybe sometimes when you're doing something in the studio and you don't have a crowd of people around you, or you're learning it in your living room, you don't have a tendency to play it faster. But when you get in front of a crowd of people, the song sometimes sounds like a drag to you if you kick it off at the same speed that you recorded it or learned it, unless it is a real slow ballad, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
If it's a medium tempo speed song, I have a tendency to kick off bluegrass on my mind a lot faster than I recorded it. And at the time I recorded it, it seemed like that was about the right tempo for it, you know.
Could that also be that sometimes audiences are only going to be happy with an up-tempo song?
Right, right.
Because I heard a strange remark one night when you guys were playing over there by somebody. I think you played maybe 2 ballads in a row, and someone said, "Hey, play some bluegrass."
Yeah.
Which to them meant play something
fast,
fast.
Some crowds you hit, and that's all they'll buy, something fast. When you run into a crowd like that, give them what they want. You have to watch a crowd pretty close, you know, to gauge this. Notice me, I keep trying to change the pace. As often as
A balanced
I can.
set.
Not play too many fast or too many slow in a row. In other words, change people's moods. My theory used to be if you can change people's moods 7 times in 30 minutes, you put on a good show.
Yet there must be certain songs that you have to play on stage.
Yeah.
You probably would just as soon not play, but you know you have to do them because that's what the people out there want.
Yeah.
And you're a paid entertainer,
Right.
therefore you have to.
They've not heard them as much as I have.
Yeah. I get the impression sometimes that the first set in like over at Charlie's or anything, the first set is when it's empty and not filling up. That's the set you're playing for fun because of the songs you want to play.
Yeah.
Because you know sooner or later you're going to have to do Orange Blossom Special and doing banjos and Foggy Mountain Breakdown. And there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying anything about the songs. They're perfectly fine pieces of music, but they may have been overdone a little bit.
It's funny how people keeps wanting to hear them over and over and over again. You think they get tired of them, you know, but they'll go to calling for them, and if you don't play what the crowd wants, why?
Well, that goes back to what you were saying before about what people can identify.
Yeah.
If they're not musicians themselves, they want to hear something that is familiar to them, and these are the ones that they can remember and
That's
identify.
one reason why Wildwood Flowers are popular. People will call for practice to find out whether you can play it or not.
That's right.
Because they know the tune of it, see?
That's right.
And maybe you've done 10 songs and they don't know the tune of it. They don't know whether you've done it right or not. So when you play Wildwood Flowers, play it like old Maybelle Carter did, you know. Simple as you can play it. And they think you've done a
That's
good
a good point, yeah. I think you're right.
Because I'll tell you why. Chet Atkins went out on the stage one night years ago and played Wildwood Flower and done a masterpiece on it. And there was a small ripping of applause. And we followed him, and somebody just for spite hollered out and said, "Red Smiley, play Wildwood Flower." Well, Red played it just like old Maybelle. Got done and they just tore the house off. I thought to myself, now if that didn't learn me a lesson, you know. Here Chet Atkins goes out and plays it every way, turns it upside down, and really done a hard task to play it. And then here comes Red out just the old easy, simple way. But they didn't recognize it the way Chet played it.
So it depends whether you're playing for an audience or playing for other musicians.
Right, yeah. Now today you're playing for more musicians than you used to play for, because there's so many more people can pick, you know, and play.
But that may be a danger too.
You have to walk a chalk, you know.
Right.
There's a line you got.
If you're just playing for the pickers out there, then everybody's going to be throwing out all the stops and they'll burn themselves out after the third number.
Right. You have to you have to kind of go down the middle of the road, you know, and play for the audience and the pickers too. You know? They're a lot wiser. The audience and the whole audience is wiser now than they used to be. I mean, it's harder on that man up on the stage to come off and please a crowd today than it was 25 years.
It's like go back to television, the early days with Ed Sullivan's circus routines on that variety show. Now, each week, if you're going to have someone doing circus tricks, after a couple of years of this, the audience is going to be so sophisticated that nothing is going to dazzle them anymore.
Right.
It's not like going into a small town back in the 30s with a traveling circus, and whatever you do is going to be of interest to those people because they've never seen it before.
Kids today, 12 years old, 6 years old, has seen more than me and you had seen when we was grown.
That's right. And that's good, but at the same time, it means that people get jaded so soon in life.
It means one thing: if you're an entertainer, you have to shape up.
Yeah.
If you get out there and don't entertain them, well, they know it.
Well, listen, I've never seen a band like the way you guys can play to. No matter what that audience is out there, you can pull something out of your memories to please that crowd.
Yeah.
You have to go back into the pop songs, as you said, or you go into the country western field, and
you watch a crowd.
Fantastic recall.
I watch a crowd real close. They never know I'm watching them, but I am. I'm paying attention. It's a pretty hard task on a band leader to get on the stage and watch a band, watch a crowd, play yourself, keep everything going.
Yeah.
And the bands now are a lot better than they were, 20 years ago. I'd say most every band that you run into has got a lot of stuff on the ball that they didn't have 20 years ago.
But there's that element of showmanship, or that element of pleasing the audience, and
yeah.
Like when I wrote this thing up about Raymond Fairchild, I thought it was an amazing thing that a band of one lead instrument and two backup instruments could go up there and hold the attention of a crowd for a full set of banjo pieces. Now, I don't know how long that could happen. I would think that after a while, unless that band got some vocals and got something besides just Raymond up there picking 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But it's a novelty at first.
Yeah, he entertains me,
Yeah, right. Because, and I think the average.
I've seen him do it maybe 6 days in a row. It might get old.
Yeah.
With no variety.
I think the fact that he is so aloof on stage, or so distant, that's part of it. That's his,
part of it.
It's kind of a reverse showmanship.
Trick, yeah.
That's right.
And this tickles me. It amazes me, his nonchalant way about cross-eyed looking into his face, like he don't give a 2-cent piece what's going on,
Just plays.
Take it or leave it. It don't make no difference to me.
I know it.
Then he does, his little trick stuff. You're not expecting that out of this. What deadpan character?
Right. Something
and when it comes
the firework.
That why it fires a crowd up.
Sure, that's right.
That's his trick, I think. But he does it well. I'll tell you that.
He's hot stuff,
Amazing.
He suffered through years, as he told me, years and years of being a drunk, and he knows that he's got himself, I think, pretty well under control.
Yeah. He loves to go out in the mountains and hunt ginseng, yellow root, and all this kind of junk,
What do you got to say for the record? Got something significant?
Which record is that?
Important to say?
What, the
this is the CIA. We've got a bug microphone here in the flower arrangement.
He lives about a mile and a half, I guess, from my oldest sister down there in Carolina. I've known Raymond for years and years. And he's really come out of the bushes in the last 10 years and does play some fine banjo, you know.
Yeah, sure does. Well, he had a, I want to get your gut reaction to this, because the question is normally asked to anybody who is a notable musician or picker, let's say, advice for a young person starting out in terms of learning. Now, even the chromatic or the melodic pickers like Bobby Thompson or Eldridge or Trishka or these guys, when they were interviewed not long ago in this melodic banjo book, they said Earl is the man. Go back and listen to Earl.
Yeah.
When I asked Raymond this, he said, don't listen to anybody. He said, don't listen to Earl. In fact, he said, don't listen to Don Reno. He said, go out and don't pay attention to your record player. Work out your own roles. Work out your own style. Be yourself, because there's no way you can be them. You have to be yourself.
I think
so there's kind of a conflict between.
Yeah.
What do you think of this?
I think he's right. Because one person might come up and say, well, to me, there ain't nobody can play a banjo but Earl Scruggs. Well, that's his thought. If that's his thought, don't try to change it. Or somebody might come up and say, nobody can play but Don Reno. Well, that's his thought. Or somebody will come up and say that there was but one banjo player, and that was string bean. I've had people tell me this. I agree with him wholeheartedly. What's the use trying to change a person's mind? But if a young player is learning to play, I always tell them, listen to everybody, and then play the way you feel. After you learn the basics, don't try to pattern after no one person, because if you do, you're only bringing to mind when you play somebody else. Say, well, he plays exactly like Earl Scruggs, or he plays exactly like Don Reno. And he's actually pushing me or Earl or some other banjo player, not pushing himself. So try to be creative and be your own, float your own ship, you know.
Well, it's kind of, I think the same thing happens in jazz, that a person will absorb the licks or the styles of many people. But eventually, somewhere at a point, if there is any original creativity there at all, that person will break away and come up with a meld, a composite, what you want to call it.
Yeah.
Now, some people maybe the reason that this happens, the other thing that happens, is that people don't have any original thoughts in their head.
Right.
Then they have to resort on being a carbon copy
Or
of somebody
original
else.
feel.
Or original feel.
Now, two people can play the same song, like a man can come up and play a song note for note, put every note in it that I put in, or put every note in it that Earl puts in. But still, it don't sound like the original, you know. Yeah. It's the feel.
It's the
they ain't
feel.
putting the feel. They're putting the notes there, but they're not putting the feel.
That's right. And those are things that can't even be written down in musical notation at all. That cannot be written down.
You can't tell a man. It just has to come, you know, deep down.
And at the same time, let's put you in that same situation where there is someone that has absorbed a musical rendition that you have recorded. He can play it note for note.
Right.
Let's put him on stage and have him play it. Now let's put you back up on stage, and if you play it the same way as the record, you'd surprise me, because I think at this point you would suddenly say, well, I made that 20 years ago. Now let me play it for you. This is what I can do with it now.
Yeah.
And the chances are that original person would be stuck.
Yeah, that's true. Or I might play some of it like I recorded, and then all of a sudden think I should go into something else with it. I do try anymore to play at least half of it. Like
The same way.
I recorded it, you know.
Yeah.
If
That's
I
a jumping
remember
off
how I
point. That's a
recorded it.
jumping off point.
Yeah. Because there are people out there that, one guy come up to me with tears in his eyes one night and asked me why I didn't play a song the same way, you know. He'd learned it. Playing. Then he learned it. He'd heard me play it again and taped it, I think. And he finally learned it that way. And about the third time I come up and played it different, he got disgusted.
Yeah, I guess that can be a problem because you're dealing then with some people that's what they're holding on to.
Right. So it, to sum it all up in one big thought, it's a great big ball field, and you got a lot of players on there, and there's an awful lot of good ball players.
Right. It's
all make good plays, and sometimes we all make bad ones, So
it's like voting for the all-star team or something in baseball.
Nobody's perfect. Nobody ever will be.
Nobody will be, and yet at the same time, there's plenty of people who get overlooked that could probably do just as good a job if given the opportunity.
Right. And some people won't take the opportunity. That could do it. I've heard people back in the boondocks play some stuff that was out of this world, and to drag one on the stage, you'd have to get a sheriff with 2 pistols, put him,
That's right. It's an entirely different point of view. So whether you pick for a stage or whether you pick for fun in your living room.
And I've heard people that could go backstage and play perfect and play some stuff out of this world and put them on stage and they freeze up and can't play nothing.
Well, someone told me that this musician Butch Robbins is that way, that he's a very fine picker, but when he gets on stage he tenses. I've never seen him, but they say in the studio he
don't play on stage what he knows or what he can play.
Yeah, and this is either a tension or
maybe it would take him an hour to get numbered up on stage, and by this time the show's been over, You have to be loose, kind of, from the word go. Now, I'm not.
Well, your musical career could have gone in other directions, actually, from what, it could have gone, into like pop, country, and western if you wanted it to, or it probably could have gone into jazz if you wanted it to.
It could have went anyway.
Or just plain studio work, couldn't it?
Tom T. Hall called me last night, wanted me to fly to Nashville and cut an album in July, and I told him, I said, I'm so busy. I appreciate you calling me,
Yeah. He's a banjo picker now, I understand. He's learning to play banjo.
He's no Kentucky boy. He said he rummaged around and went through some kind of trouble to find my phone. I was very disappointed that I couldn't get him down.
But what if that call had come in the leaner years, as far as your activity now? I mean, would you have been able to fit it in, or?
Well, probably. If I hadn't have been working,
yeah.
Well, I would have went now if I hadn't have been.
If you had the time right now.
But the second Tuesday in July, we got all these dates.
Well, have there been situations in the past where, if you had made a decision to go in a different direction, that you possibly would have wound up in that type of a musical way instead of what you were doing?
Probably would have. At one time, by 1946, I was playing electric guitar, and but I'm mostly in another category of music.
Sure.
I think it's good to learn all the phases of it. But now I got sold, or I sold myself to the public with the type of stuff that I'm doing today. So I think I'd be silly to try to change in the middle of the stream. I still love to play other stuff. Enjoy it.
Yeah, you don't probably get that much opportunity now to do other things besides what you're doing with the band.
No. I know I used to, back when I was working at the opera with Bill Monroe, me and Dale Potter and Grady Martin, Hank Carl, bunch of us to get off in the room and have some of the wildest jam sessions you ever heard. You know, I can just play everything in the world. And I think
Do you miss that now? I mean,
Yeah,
that
I do.
give and take of
I
a free
do.
jam. What is the reason now? You're just too busy, and the
Yeah.
hours and so on.
and you don't run into the route that I'm on now. I don't run into the musicians
Yeah,
that
yeah. Just
cater to that
had it
kind of
worked
stuff
out.
like I used to, you know. Like we used to, me and Smiley used to work package shows, you know. A lot of the groups out in Nashville, like Ray Price and Marty Robbins, Jim Reeves, and I knew all their side men, you know, and of course they all knew that I played other stuff besides
Right.
banjo, so they dragged me into a jam session. They wouldn't drag me, they'd get to jamming, you know. It was something that you had in your system, you know. It's kind of good to get it out once
I know what
in
you
a while.
mean. Yeah, I know. I get the feeling like a person like Kenny Baker, because you see him in the field at a lot of festivals playing fiddle tunes that you know he doesn't get a chance to
Right.
to do on stage. He cuts his occasional fiddle album, but
Right.
the shows that Bill Monroe does on stage are pretty much the same as what you've seen.
Well, yeah, it follows
follows a
the same
pattern.
pattern.
That's right.
Right.
And it's not really his fault. It's not the fault of any band, because if you've got a following, you've got requests. And if you've got requests, you answer requests. And pretty soon the requests begin to take up the entire set.
Yeah, you can have something that you really think is good and that you want to do, and the crowd don't want to hear that. They want to hear something that they've heard you do 10,000 times before. So you have to do the other. And you keep fishing around trying to see if they'll bite at some other type of bait, you know, every once in a while. At least for self-preservation and nothing else.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I like to keep changing tunes, you know. I've always been that way. Maybe that's not good. I don't know. But like when we play a show somewhere, if I play one, you know, tunes on one show, I don't want to play them on the next show. I want to play something else.
Sure.
I have seen groups that had one stock show they played. If they played 4 sets a night, they got up and played the same thing over and over, even told the same jokes.
Oh, I know it.
You know,
I know it.
Down pat. Well,
Country gentlemen were that way for a while.
that really gets disgusting.
Same jokes for break string. They had string breaking jokes, and they had key changing jokes. The worst story I've ever heard about anything like that. I feel sorry for the guy, because the reason behind it was that he was drunk on stage. But someone told me about Charlie Moore going up to one of those Ray Davis shows last winter and singing "Rebel Soldier" 3 times in the first set.
Is that right? That's possible.
It's possible. He just, he didn't know where he was. Of course, those crowds at Ray Davis were getting those fireballs up there were they start early.
Yeah, they do.
They start early.
About a noisy bunch. That seagull in, they get rough out there.
Well, I guess I would keep it off the record if you wanted to, as far as your thoughts about Don Reno and the Mastertone that everyone knows him by, and the fact that you have been shopping around lately. Is this anything that you would like to have mentioned, or should we kind of keep that under the covers for a while?
Well, it don't.
Because what will happen if I do mention it, it then becomes free. It becomes free publicity for Stelling and everything else, and I don't want to do that unless.
I don't mind saying this. That, as far as I'm concerned, the Stelling banjo is the best new banjo
That you've seen.
all the way around that I've played. In other words, I think it what I'm trying to do, others leave my old one at home.
Yeah. Right.
So it don't get
So you don't-
tore up.
You don't have to worry about it.
Gone.
Right.
And I believe the Stellan is going to fill the bill, you know.
Well, you know what he's doing now? He is making his, he's running so far behind on orders that he has gotten placed. That he is going to make his pot assembly available for people if they wish to install their own neck on it.
Is that right?
And the price of that pot assembly, you know, this is between you and me,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to publicize this either, because I was a little upset when I heard it. The price of the pot assembly is about the price you would pay if you were to find an old Mastertone tenor for conversion. He's talking about $800 for resonator, shell, tone rim, flange, and hardware. Then you still have the expense of a neck on top of it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if the marketplace will buy that for myself. I really think that's a little steep.
That's the only thing that worries me about his product is the price.
It is high. That's right. It is high. He keeps telling me that every time I talk to him, he talks about it going up again and going up higher.
But things are getting so high, you know, everything. Paper, it's gone sky high, you know.
That's
Look what it costs you now, probably to print your monthly magazine compared to what it did when you first started.
Yep.
I know there's been an increase probably in
Paper costs, and then of course we have to worry about the good old post office.
I know
They keep hitting us all the time.
Yeah.
They keep going up. Well, I think I got enough on here to go back and come up with some thoughts. Is there anything that you want to say for the record that I've neglected to mention? Talking about the banjos and more so than the
I think
biographical stuff I can fill in from other areas.
Information.
I know one thing. I was in the back of my head. In your book, you talked about treating your neck with linseed oil.
Burn linseed
Burn
oil.
linseed oil.
Yeah.
Is that, okay, see, there's two kinds of linseed oil. There's boiled and raw. This is the boiled linseed.
Just put it on your fingerboard and then wipe it off dry. It tends to keep moisture out of the neck, and it will penetrate completely through the neck. And it
Just goes right on down there.
My grandfather used to live in Colorado, and used to have like 1,000 acres of pinto beans, 1,000 acres of wheat, you know. And the wagon bed, you know, with the scoop shovels, you know, the shovel hitting the bottom of the wooden bed.
Right.
If it wasn't treated with burned linseed oil, it didn't last long. But you could treat it with burned linseed oil and then make it just as hard as flint steel.
Is that right?
I think that's one of the reasons why my old Mastertone has got the original fingerboard on it and in good shape. Because I treated that thing with linseed oil.
How often did you? Is this a one-time treatment? Or?
I've done it about 3 or 4 times, I guess. It tends to keep moisture off your spring somewhat and dampens off your neck. So your neck has a slick feel for it. So you probably picked up banjo and the neck feels sticky or clammy or something.
Yeah.
And I never did notice my old Mastertone feeling that way after I used the burned linseed oil.
Now, do you think your Mastertone's feelings are hurt that there's another banjo in the house?
Well, there's some awful deep feelings for that old banjo, you know. Between me, I think as long as I've got it, I won't worry. But if I was to be foolish enough to sell it, then I think I'd probably worry myself to death, you know, or everything would go wrong with whatever I had. As long as I've got it to fall back on.
It's been a good old friend for a long time.
wish now that I had just made a notation of every show that I worked with it, you know. The day I got it. It would probably astound me and everybody else to know how many shows I
How many miles have been?
Yeah.
How many miles and how many notes? Did you ever keep, or have you kept a careful record of the recordings that you've made? Do you have that logged in, or is that just memory work?
At somewhere in the house, there's a record of it. It's way up there. I know that I've used that banjo on over 1,000 songs. It's been recorded on over 1,000.
Because that's the kind of information that should be eventually published. I don't know how how complete it is that you put down as far as time, date, serial numbers, and things like that.
I used to keep a record of, like I say, we're here in the house somewhere, of recording dates, what we recorded on each day. I'd write a song, I'd date it, which come in real handy when I started putting that song out. I started trying to research and go back.
That's it.
See, it wouldn't have been hard to. Now I can remember a lot of rough, you know, month, year. The date will get mixed up with the number.
I know it. Well, is that something that you could locate? And if you could locate it, would you be interested in having that worked into some, like, you know, the discography of Monroe that was put out not long ago by Neil Rosenberg and so on? I know it's of interest to scholars, and I'm not looking for it for my sake. If I couldn't print it or get it published, the Library of Congress is the kind of the archives of the folklore thing. It's the kind of information that should be put down on paper up to the point of printing, and then after that it would be an easy matter to keep intact.
I'll
see if you can locate it.
Try to locate that stuff.
I would imagine there are probably some people out there who probably matched you on it. That like this guy I mentioned up in Frederick, Maryland, Joe Bussard, who's a jazz collector. He probably has a copy of everything you've ever recorded, and he probably has a lot of it up there in his files. But he might not have everything too, or some of the dates he may not have.
Then too, another thing that would confuse a guy like him on recording dates for the year. Let's see. Well, the way we used to record for King, we recorded so much. They might take something out of last year's recording or something out of this year's recording and match it up together, and then there'd be some stuff that they'd figure we had some better stuff than what they had, and a song might lay around for 3 or 4 years before it'd ever be released, you know.
That's it. So a recording date would differ from a release date.
Right.
Yeah. I think it'd be a worthwhile project for scholarship.
When we went on dot, they cut loose stuff. I don't think they'd ever released if they hadn't run out. They kept releasing records right on after we went to dot because they had enough.
Well, were some things like air checks and things done too that have gotten onto record? Were some recordings made off the air that did get released? And they would be entirely different too from studio work.
Not that I know of. I usually did all my stuff in the studio.
You did stuff. Well, you did it, but I'm saying there must have been times when you played live, and were there any of those things recorded, even if you might not even have known it?
not to my knowledge.
I think
I
the
could
opera,
have.
some of the opera stuff and things like that.
Could
where they-
have been, you know. The way people's got to where the bootleggers and all.
Right, yeah. Because that's been relatively recent with home equipment that people have been able to have
Yeah.
available. At one time, that wasn't around.
I don't think years ago they had equipment was decent enough
No,
to put out as a
no.
record.
You think they used wire in those days?
Yeah,
A lot of
well,
wire.
I remember there were wire recorder, you know, you put,
Big spool.
you ever got one messed up, it's worse.
I know it.
Hairspring and a watch turned loose on it.
Well, someone sent me not long ago a cassette recording of a meeting of Bobby Thompson and Billy Keith back in '64. Now, the story was that this was the first time these two guys sat down with banjos in their hands. They'd heard of each other but never heard each other pick, and it was just a feeling out type of thing. Well, someone had placed a mic behind something in one room, and it was a tape recorder going in the other room, and neither one of these guys knew it was being taken down. And both were quite upset to know that copies of this, not only was a tape made, but then copies and dupes and everything had been made and sent all around the country to various people. And I got a copy of it with the promise that I would never dupe it for anybody else, which I will not do. I'll honor that, and I've got it on my files as a piece of historical information. But I'd never dub it for anybody. But this was done. It's like it's just like the Watergate all over, really. You should know you're being recorded.
Well, you should, yeah.
And you should have the right to say, turn it off.
Right.
Well, let's see, I get myself back on the road and go back, and I'm playing Joe Batchelor. Nancy went away for a while. I'm not even sure for how long. She went up to New England just as I was leaving today.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and feed the other members of the family.
How many children you got?
I got 3.
Hey?